Hello, I am Radagast, and this is Global Mission of Peace TV with Mystic View, and I am joined by my co-host, Shelley. Hello, Shelley.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
And we're going to call this show Constructing the New Paradigm. And we're going to just talk about kind of what we might want to start building in our own psychology and belief systems, and to project a reality for a new paradigm. We're hoping that we're finding an audience that's not happy with the current paradigm. I guess I should say at the outset, if the current paradigm is just fine and dandy with you, maybe you should just stop watching.
No, there's always room for improvement for everybody.
So a big part of the current paradigm really is us being debt slaves. A world where it seems that keeping scarcity as part of the paradigm enables us to not worry about what we really want to do, because we have things we have to pay if we don't want to live in a box under a statue or a bridge. I mean, the system is set up that way. It is a setup. Now, of course, there's certain aspects. I mean, there are certain aspects about incentivizing, but then, there's incentivizing and then there's exploiting. It's just almost like it's fine to run a business and turn a profit. It's part of sustaining things. It's another thing to run a business and want to maximize profit. And then that's necessarily always through nice, holistic, organic efficiency, because or if you look at nature, nature is efficient. You really want to follow nature's example in efficiency of energy use. But there's also maximizing a profit where it's hack and burn and slash and deprive and other kinds of things. So we're going to just try and go through some ideas of creating a new paradigm. And part of it, and much of this new paradigm really revolves around money. Now, the other thing that has been constructed in the old paradigm is, instead of worshiping the creator, we worship money. Really, if many people, not all people, or enough people, unfortunately, if given the choice of doing the ethical thing or the maximizing profit thing, choose the latter. And that's because there isn't the proper respect for the creator and us being agents of being the creator's hands. So, so we can either create the creator's impulses, or we can create from impulses that are not the creator's. And I guess part of why I'm bringing this up is because one of the, in our alternative community, and one of the memes that floats around is something I guess we'll call broadly prosperity funds. And they have various names, and we're not going to stick to any names. This is just to get you in the ballpark in case the broader term of prosperity funds, like the Nasara, Saint Germain. Okay, these are some of the names you've heard. So this brings you into what I'm talking about, prosperity funds. Then we have what's that?
Evaluations.
Yeah, what is Sino running? What's that thing out of Indonesia? I know Ron Van Dyke belonged to it. But it's
the same idea. It's all the same package.
Yeah, it has a name. Anyway, but from what I can tell, part of the reason why these ideas are out there is I think there's something in the works towards that end. Whether it looks anything like these other things say it's going to be is another story. So we're going to try and stay away from details and stay with concepts, because a paradigm is a concept. You want to come in here or more? Just let me roll.
Well, sure. Just to say, really, the root of the word paradigm is really to compare old patterns, not even old patterns, but it's comparing So the fact that you get enveloped, that you become enveloped in a paradigm, disables you to compare. So, you know, it was about 1962, Thomas Kuhn really popularized the idea of paradigm shift. And so this has been with us a little while, but it's going to be a very interesting show. So let's roll on.
I muted myself because my roommate's pulling in his very noisy truck, which is right outside my window. But yeah, the engine just turned off. So there are some one very interesting development, at least for me, and something that has really kind of completely gone underneath the radar, is the current Pope, Pope Francis. Now, if you don't understand how much power is locked into the Vatican with their owning of souls, and they're having that set of law that other laws derive from, and that supersedes all other laws, and governments accept this supersedence. This is important to know. Governments accept the authority of the Vatican. And so whether they really have authority, like you might go, oh, that sounds like a bunch of crap. Well, the big boys playing by their rules accept that. Okay, so 3 years ago, in August, Pope Francis had identified that since almost every bank in the world dealt with the Vatican Bank, and apparently the Vatican Bank wasn't always playing nice anyway, that there was papal immunity for anybody who dealt with the Vatican. And again, this would include at least every major bank. Any major bank was dealing with the Vatican, and therefore they had papal immunity from prosecution. Now, of course, these governments accepted. It looks like a government in Iceland might have waived that acceptance. But when people go, how come we don't see some of these people who admit to that they did bad things? I mean, they just seem to be able to stay out of a courtroom, or if they go there, they get a slap on the wrist, but they never are subjected to the same kind of harsh judgments and punishments that the average person is. And that, from what I can understand, the real reason of that is papal immunity. 3 years ago, Pope Francis rescinded that papal immunity that would take effect. In other words, that immunity would go away in 3 years. And since he made the announcement in August, basically the end of August is the time that papal immunity will no longer be in effect. So September 1st means that all these people who are doing high crimes or no longer have the protection of the Vatican, and that could drastically change the landscape of finance in the world. And so this is just throwing in an idea for any of the people who kind of are, who have the authority, we'll call it for now, to release some of these funds that in fact have been held for helping humanity. They might feel that the terrain has now shifted enough where if something goes wrong, at least they can call somebody on the carpet and do something about it. You can't expect somebody to do the right thing when there is no consequence of doing the wrong thing. And so I think September 1st might mark a time where the people who would like to at least experiment, and this is, with releasing some prosperity funds, would feel free enough to at least feel that, because trust me, they are expecting problems because they're dealing with humans. We have thousands of years of history of being able to be bribed, and it happens at every level. It happens at the highest level. It happens at the street level. Being bribed is one of the weaknesses of humans. Now, whether that happens when people start to become more prosperous is a good question.
I think that's a very important part of the paradigm shift that we are hoping to bring to people's attention and awareness. Just start considering, in what ways would your life change as a result of this type of a paradigm shift.
Right.
And we're going to go beyond money, but for now, let's carry on with the money, because as you opened the show with, so many people have, even if they are devoutly religious and feel like they are right on track between their heart and their God, you bring it down to a situation where they're feeling insecure. All of a sudden, their money is superseding the importance or the values, and they don't even recognize it. That's when you're stuck in a paradigm. You don't realize that you're operating out of this need, out of this desire for money, as opposed to trusting in your creator, or trusting in the universe, or trusting in God, whatever that is, and taking action according to those values. I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, this has been something we've been expecting for a long time. It looks like it's inching closer. And I think that it's a really wonderful way that people are going to be able to explore their actual values.
Yes. Because, I mean, when we look at, certain people who are already doing very well, I mean, they have to hide money, they're doing so well. Mm-hmm. And yet they still want more. So, of course, what we're really dealing with here is, are people able to understand what is enough? What allows us to feel comfortable and not need to build a pile. Because what we see in some of the behaviors, at least at the top level, is people with more than they could ever use, still wanting more. And so that, that's something that gets into human psychology. I don't think that is that's human nature. No, I don't believe that's human nature. I think human nature was given to us by the Creator with the free will or free choice. And then there were other influences in this universe that will insert other ideas. I mean, I really work very well with, we don't have original thoughts, that we are actually receiving stations. Our brains are receiving stations from data from our environment. And we receive ideas from, let's call it, both sides. And so some of that data we're going to be receiving is, in fact, part of creation. It's organic. It is part of the master plan that lives outside of time, knows what knows what potential futures look like, and knows how to move things towards those good futures. And then there's an antagonist, and that antagonist puts thoughts into our head. And then we have a choice. Okay. We
have a choice, and we get to measure it like the ancient Egyptians did, with a feather of the heart in the scales. And hopefully your heart is as light as that feather.
And so I agreed. So we have this, the other thing with Sino was Swiss Indo. Swiss Indo was the other one. And so with the new paradigm, part of the new paradigm comes from actually what we're going to create. And of course, that has to do with, you start with a concept of new paradigm based on probably what you don't like about the current paradigm. And then now you have an idea. Then you form a plan, and then you operate from the plan. I mean, an idea is one thing, a plan is another. An idea is something an architect has in their head. The blueprint is the plan, and then you have people come in and carry out that thing. So let's really be clear the difference between ideas, plans, and actual construction of that. So constructing a new paradigm means that we have to entertain new ideas, to have new plans, to construct a new paradigm. And so my whole thing is, human nature is to entertain many thoughts. And so the whole thing is, how would we like to change the paradigm of human nature, where the old things about, we're always in struggle, that we're
the hard way,
the various, it's human nature to do what's best for you and screw everybody else.
I don't think that's human nature.
No, that isn't human nature. That's a choice that humans will get as a thought, but I don't think that's our nature. Again, our nature is that to be given choices. And then we will show our true nature by the choices we make. but it's not a slam dunk. We don't have a programmed nature to be greedy. We don't have a programmed nature to be cutthroat competitive. That's not a programmed nature. That's a choice that we make as we move through the realm of choices that come into our receiving station that we call our brain.
Nature is to flow. It's not to gather and hang on to things, whether it's money or anything else. It's to allow it to flow.
Yes.
Just allow the stagnation from happening.
Well, that's completely, if you want to know what the ideal human nature would be, look to nature.
Hey, there's an idea.
Okay? Nature was created first. We were created second. Nature is there as a teacher. Nature is there as an example of how we can do what I like to call the second creation, that ties in with the world is in God's hands and God's hands are at the end of all our arms. So that means that there's a creation beyond nature. But to me, to continue that is we have new ideas that we're creative, but we want to use nature as at least as how things are done right, the symbiotic aspects of nature. People go, oh, there's parasites in nature. I still wonder, again, since we create our reality, I don't know that a lot of that parasitism we see in nature isn't actually there to mirror back to us what we have, some of the choices we have made.
Right, and not only that, but parasites can be a very cleansing process. That's kind of what happens. They devour the host and then they're gone.
Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is very often it has to do with terrain. I mean, where you see parasites infect one tree and not another. Well, maybe because the tree wasn't needed to come down. Because the other thing about nature, that's why I've said about insects are the quality control of nature, which is why very often really well-grown produce, and I can't just use the lump term organic, because organic has become a brand thanks to the United States Department of Agriculture. So just because something is grown organic according to their definition, I mean, organic is their legislative definition, and doesn't mean it's always responsible. But properly grown vegetation has been shown to be largely pest resistant. Now, some people and those who actually really go to great lengths to do this often find that they will have minimal pest predation, and it's not. And what I like to think is when we see the minimal is actually there was something wrong genetically with the original seed, and of course the quality control comes in and takes down that one, because it's like with all this other good stuff, this is the seeds you want. These are the seeds you don't want. Mm-hmm. And so insects are really nature's quality control. And so in many ways, like as you just said, Shelley, there are certain parasitic things that could be out there looking for what they need to take down because its viability isn't there. And
I think that's so important, because the whole point about being stuck in a paradigm is that you are not able to see beyond that. You're so ingrained and conditioned with these thoughts that it takes practically a miracle or something like this occur to snap you out of the old paradigms. You can have so many examples of paradigms where if it's in your eyes, you still don't see it because you're so ingrained in your belief that anything else isn't even perceptible to you.
Well, I've heard people, bring up things like, oh, the woodpeckers are killing that tree. No, they're not. They're eating the bugs that are killing that tree. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are people who actually think woodpeckers attack trees and kill them. Mm-hmm. And they're just exploiting a bug-ridden tree that, they're going to peck through and get it. I mean, they know the tree's dying.
I think you bring forward a really good point, because just because it's my paradigm doesn't mean that anybody else is going to understand it. Mm-hmm. Somebody can maybe rip out hair and think, oh, it'll only take 2 months to grow it back. But somebody with really long hair, if you stand up, it could take 30 years to grow that back. That's an entirely different paradigm. Nobody, unless you have long hair, is going to understand that.
Mm-hmm. That's the truth.
So it also, besides culture to culture, it's also a very individual and personal shift that we're going through collectively here on so many levels.
So, so part of what Shelley and I are attempting to do here is create a conversation in all of our heads about a new paradigm that I think is going to be offered to us to create. And it's going to be, and I think just like any plan, you really need to kind of brainstorm with yourself, then share your ideas with others so that when the actual situation arrives, you're prepared. And the greatest preparedness is actually your state of mind. We are psychological creatures. And so the state of mind that prosperity funds might arrive in will largely dictate the results of those of that arriving, and how we use this newfound opportunity. Like, and I believe there's going to be like part of people are going to be watching and they're going, okay, you know, it's been controlled here. How about we try it there and see what happens? So to me, it's incumbent upon us to make sure that those who are observing what happens see something good happen. I mean, you know, because I mean, in many ways, this opportunity is an opportunity. Opportunities are things to make the best of. And so until,
yes,
go ahead.
we also create our own opportunities. This isn't just something being given to us. This is incumbent upon us to take the steps necessary to bust out of the old paradigm, say that is not acceptable, and start playing with ideas about creating a new paradigm. Like, make that an actual activity. It's an action. And it's essential. This isn't somebody just, you know, by virtue of the fact that our solar system happens to be spinning, you know, into new light, which of course it is, but it's still up to us. This is a cycle we've done before. And I think we can have a really great success with it.
I think we could have astounding success, but we'd have to be working together in some kind of coordinated fashion. We'd have to, I mean, the analogy I like with the idea of getting some money is it's almost like it's like you have a well, but you need some water to prime it, to get that well pumping. Now, once it's pumping, it's going to give you plenty of water. And so, and then you can always put your own glass aside and give back the person who lent you the first glass if they want it. Hey, here's your water back. You know, now we're square. You know, I don't owe you anything. And then you just make sure, that you either keep the water pumping or you always have your own cup of water to reprime it. So this way here, whoever was the first person who gave you that water to get your act going, you don't need them anymore. Okay, this is how we become sovereign. If there's like the whole thing I would guess is like, this is a way to, if it's like somebody's giving us seeds. Are we going to plant gardens so that we now will have our own seeds in the future and never need to rely on anybody else? And so to me, this will be our chance at building sovereignty. I mean, first of all, we have sovereignty from God, but that's something that the average person doesn't realize. That's how the Constitution of the United States was built on. All sovereignty is given to everybody by God. And that those sovereigns can then appoint people to work for them and send them out to create their own little think tanks, whatever. That's what Congress is supposed to be. Congress is supposed to be appointees by sovereign people to carry out duties. That's how the government. That's the whole. And then basically the president is kind of a CEO to make sure that they kind of. And again, they were said you had the Supreme Court. You had Congress and Senate, and you had the president, and they're all supposed to be checking each other, making sure nobody's playing dirty. Because again, after we appoint our people, somebody has to be a little bit of a watchdog. So this all kind of comes again down to sovereignty, where nobody can give us our sovereignty. It was already given to us. So now it's a matter of reclaiming it, and reclaiming it isn't about the name and whether your name's in capitals. Reclaiming is in your heart, to understand where that is. And then enough people coming together, understanding only the Creator has made us sovereign. And anybody who is not working with that Creator is working against that Creator. And then they can't claim, the divine right of kings or anything like this. It's like, if you have a divine right, then you're going to be operating from the same place we are, because we're all operating from the Creator.
Sounds like there's some accountabilities and responsibilities that comes with this.
For everybody. Because then the whole thing is we get into fractalization. Like if we, the sovereign fractals, are in fact have proper spin and are in bliss, then of course anybody who's like any other kind of sovereign would have to be in resonance with that, because it's all about resonance. It's all being able to collapse into each other, to fit within each other, and then we will have bliss. And then bliss would be a sign of us, and joy would be a sign of us that we're getting the instructions of creation correct.
Right. And I think if we're going to capitalize on something, let's capitalize on bliss and share it.
Yes.
And that would be a quick turnaround for values right there. This paradigm shift, it characterizes also a scientific revolution. It brings forward not just a change in your finances, but also a change in what kind of technology is available to us, what sort of medical opportunities are suddenly out there and available.
Yeah. Well, because right now, medicine and energy are profit driven. They're not seen as ways to assist the greater organism. They're seen as ways to parasitize the organism.
Yes. How many grants are given, and suddenly the tests have different facts attributed to them. The desire to believe and not lose grants and jobs kind of overwhelms good science on a daily basis.
Yes. I mean, there were testing laboratories and scientific study laboratories who basically have advertised, tell us what you need proved and we will prove it.
Mm-hmm. But if we prove the wrong thing, oops, just slide us some more dough and we'll change that for you.
Well, if you tell us up front what you need us to prove, we'll just prove it right off we'll prove it right, because we will set up the tests to produce the data that you're looking for. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, that's the whole thing, is the whole, the scarcity, especially with energy. To make selling people energy requires scarcity of it and delivery. That's why any concepts of free energy, 0-point energy, which Tesla had developed, were squashed, because it would interrupt the revenue flow of people who were not creative enough to figure out another way to make themselves a living.
Yes, and this is a story we're very, very familiar with in every aspect, every realm, everywhere on the planet. This has touched us. We're on the cusp of realizing a number of scientific and technological breakthroughs, though, mm-hmm. and that alone can cause monumental shifts in society. Tesla was 100 years ago. And he got that, and he said this was meant to change our relationship with each other and how we live on the planet. And those who have already put themselves, the global controllers, who are currently active, decided that was an idea that they weren't going to allow. Mm-hmm. And so the story has unfolded up until now. But the a new paradigm or paradigm shift would definitely make what is part of how the universe is self-sustaining. I mean, our own science says the universe is entropic. That is not true. I mean, well, I think that they've reached maybe a tipping point where they can't even say that anymore, honestly, in physics. I think that they just can't call it anything but negentropic anymore.
Well, the revolutionary ideas of quantum physics, although are accepted in science, weren't necessarily made available because they were realizing that that's a paradigm changer, and the people who control things, including education and science, were not in the mood for, fine, us eggheads can know that, but we're not going to explain it to people so they understand how the universe really works. Because then they're going to realize that what we're doing doesn't really work. as far as how the universe works. They will see how unnatural it is. And anything that's unnatural is also unholy with a W.
Well, and I just have to, give a shout out to some of the people who've really made great strides to bring this forward to every level, and that would be scientists like Amit Goswami. How about just all the professors from IQUIM, which is International Quantum University of Integrative Medicine. I mean, you're finding all kinds of scientists working really, really hard, very dedicated people to bring this awareness into the homes of every single person on the planet.
I mean, then you even have nature's technology. I mean, if I don't know anybody who's reading out there, some of the effects of cannabis oil on the scourge of humanity, which we'll call cancer, as far as a physical scourge. I'm not going to, I don't want to create, there's so much information out there. I don't need to make that a topic. But to say that a lot of people are suffering and dying needlessly is not an overstatement. We're not exaggerating. And the reason why that continues is because there is a profit motive in the current paradigm. The current paradigm is a seriously sick and demonic one. Who was it? It was Graham Hancock. Mm-hmm. And he used, and it was like a 4-minute piece. And in it, he used the word to describe the current culture as demonic twice. He used the word demonic.
Yeah, well, it's true.
And so you don't get a demonic world without a lot of cooperation from people going along, basically maintaining hell.
Your own prison keepers.
All right, so we're going to take a short break because we do these little things temporarily, and we'll be right back. Okay, Wayne, this is where we cut in, or McKenna. So I just wanted to take a breath and make sure we're can kind of reset in case we want to pick up in a new place.
Yeah, I'd like to. It's getting kind of heavy.
Okay.
I'd like to, lighten it up, bring the onus back to whoever's listening, and ask them questions. What sort of new paradigms are you looking forward to? Where are you sharing your inspirations?
Well, then let's kind of come back with you leading instead of me leading. How about that?
All right.
Okay, we're back from our short break. And Shelley, during the break, you certainly had some ideas, and that might be a little less heavy than where I was going.
I just wanted to remind everybody that this paradigm shift is up to each individual, and to ask ourselves the questions: what new ways can you experience life, right? Where are you inspired to live a completely different paradigm than what has been handed to you for this however long you've been alive on this planet? And where are you inspired to share that? How can we proliferate that new paradigm that we want to see? Because really, it's up to us.
It is.
Yeah, so we can take this and we can make this light and beautiful, and really that's the whole point. That's the whole point of this, is to receive that new light and to share it.
Well, I think there is a certain preparing for this. This is almost like a new journey.
Oh, it is.
Like before you sit on any journey, you might want to be prepared as something psychological, preparing, and whatever things that you might need for your preparation.
Right. And start looking at the potential of maybe somebody else's ideas might hold a little water, instead of just scoffing at it and, denying that, oh no, our system could never be like that. No, my insurance program is going to be what saves me, right? Instead of maybe looking into some options.
Yeah. Well, I find the social insects, and anytime you bring in bees and ants, the social insects and what they do, everybody goes, oh, you're talking about hive mind. No, I'm talking about an example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, again, we're humans, you know, but when you look at this, and then also I think that it's many people think, quote unquote, it's a hive mind rather than a community effort. And you know, I mean, it's that I think there's far more autonomy in these hives and in ant colonies than anybody would know. I mean, we're responding in the moment. You know, when the bee sets out, sometimes, you know, when one bee comes back, they usually go, oh, flowers in this direction. So they all head there, not because they're hive-minded, because they're out to get nectar and pollen. Somebody found a good batch and brought back the news. Yeah, this is where you want to head. So they head off in that direction. So,
Right. And that whole collective oneness is part of the paradigm that was not promoted. Nobody was supposed to get that. Nobody was supposed to understand that we're actually all connected. And what my neighbor does is going to affect me. What I do is going to affect 7 generations. Well, you know, I mean, that's taking us into some cultural idioms perhaps, but the point is we are all one, and we do need to root for each other and help each other, and as long as anybody thinks that if the individual gets ahead and, oh well, too bad for the neighbor, no, they're hurting themselves. But I think we're realizing that. I think we're getting there.
well, I just notice how every time, I mean, I've heard discussions where people bring up ants and bees, people always seem to go, oh, well, we can't live in a hive mind, as if, that, again, that example of cooperation is
Mm-hmm.
somehow an injunction to somebody to give up their autonomy and then just, live like an insect bot.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that even that projection on insects is unfair to the insects, is unfair to nature, and unfair to creation. That there's certainly a lot more richness there than is evident to our eyes.
We are 99.99% space, and nothing's going to change that, people. You will get to retain your personal space all you like.
And one of our favorite people, Butch Robbins, who's we usually manage to get many pearls from, shared one with me the other day. Was he was kind of saying, some people posit the idea of capitalism, that its antagonist or its opposite is socialism. And he said, no, the opposite of socialism is anti-socialism, or being antisocial. And this is something I've tried to do more often. Is one of the things that can lead to cognitive dissonance is by having the wrong polar opposites acting when they're not polar opposites.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, it's being as we often think only in binary rather than trinary or more. Minimal is trinary. The binary thing is where we kind of create cognitive dissonance. So the whole idea that capitalism and socialism are these two antagonists. Whenever we are going to even work with polar things, we have to have the right poles so that we see what the field is. And so when it comes to socialism, or being social, which is nothing more, what's with socialism? Being social. We are social animals. So being social is, to me, really divine human nature. And so the antithesis of socialism is anti-socialism, or being antisocial. Mm-hmm. And so this way here we can kind of, when it comes to certain concepts, we want to put them in the right field. So if we're looking at the yin and yang of things, we understand what the yin is and what the yang is from whatever perspective you're looking at it. And so again, do we really want a system that is antisocial?
Right. And what shifts our poles, or what shifts those poles from pulling or being antagonistic, is magnetism. So that comes from the heart, and compassion. And we can go beyond that, just noticing, really paying attention and noticing all the areas where we're similar, but also really enjoying the areas where we're not, not just giving yourself some space around that. Not everybody has to mimic your programming, especially our current programming. And this is part of the paradigm that people engage in without even being aware that they're doing it. Their action happens before they've even processed what they're doing. It's automatic. It's habit. That's part of our challenge.
Yes, and our other challenge is allowing our thinking to be more than binary, so we can get out of cognitive dissonance. So now let's play with capitalism. Okay, what's the antithesis of capitalism? Anti-capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so these are the poles. All right, but we have the field in the middle is where things really happen. So it isn't a choice between capitalism or anti-capitalism. There's a whole field in the middle that obviously might contain some capitalism with, of course, a little bit of its antagonist of anti-capitalism. So you don't have, it's not only capitalism or negant capitalism, or anti-capitalism. It's obviously something that is a shade of, or something else within the prismatic breakup that can be part of nature and natural and work for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the other thing. When we do identify our poles, we want to realize we don't want to hang at the poles. That's not where it happens. It happens in the field. The poles create fields.
Mm-hmm.
And in the field is where many other shades occur. And that's why you need at least trinary thinking, because you're looking for that other piece between the poles where to me, real nature occurs.
Right, and we can communicate with everything that's going on in that field. If all we have to do is tune into it. I mean, if we go back to nature, that's our cytoplasm. Everything that happens in there happens to us, and we can communicate with every level of everything that's happening in there.
And we all know that water has memory. We're at least 75% water. And Max Egan, I was watching a Max Egan thing at some whole life conference or something like that last night. It was a relatively recent talk. And he was getting into that whole thing because he was also talking about transhumanism, which to me, now that's another thing in our future paradigm. Do we really, how is transhumanism really something that is in your future that you want to embrace? He was talking about they now have created artificial sperm.
There's artificial intelligence and robotics everywhere.
So you can actually create human beings that have no history. Mm-hmm. And he went on to saying that part of the genetic pass down is the water memory. Since water has memory, you have genetic memories that get passed down through the generations because we are water-based beings. And so it only takes one little drop of water into the hole to pass on that information. And so the whole thing is part of what creates a continuum for us and a moving forward, in this case, moving forward into a paradigm, is that shared intelligence of the generations. And how do we really want to embrace something where there is no intelligence to share going forward?
Right. So all of that artificial intelligence, I mean, you're familiar with the copy paste function on the computer. It's that simple now. Some of these developments in genomics have led to. You can add a new gene, you can activate dead genes, you can control gene activity now. All of those are very real part of our society today.
So I would like to ask people who are listening to this and really want to be part of or tired of the old paradigm, looking forward to a new paradigm to move into, understanding that it has to start with us. It's not something going to be created we can walk into. It's something we create and then throw into our future and then do the things that create it. And I would like to ask people to really be more mindful of their hearts as a communication center with that created us. To be more and start to embrace the concept of your sovereignty away from the name nonsense. I'm talking about cosmic sovereignty. I'm talking about divine sovereignty. And then, so as we start to think about our future and the new paradigm we want to create, to try and draw information from that part of us. And, to really just allow ourselves to dream, because the dream will be the dream that is the dream that was part of creation will be in there. It's part of the fractal. It's part of our hookup. And if we would like to have a really beautiful future, we should start today. Start it today, start percolating, start sharing. Go ahead, Shelley.
I was just going to, just as a reminder, the joy of sharing, that's where our joy comes from. And then to escalate that into bliss, let that joy of sharing lead us into bliss. And bliss is going to be the paradigm buster.
And the other paradigm, to me, that I look forward to the future is more actual human to human interaction, more socializing in person, in biology, and not cyber socializing. I mean, are we using cyber here? Yes. One of 2 shows ago, our last show was about technology. This technology is an amazing thing as long as we don't get stuck in a pole of it. This is the shade of technology. Technology, good or bad, depends how you use it. And so we're actually we're now using cyber socializing to actually say that the future should have far more biological socializing. The ability to hug somebody, to look in their eyes. I mean, really look in their eyes, and to share nature together. I mean, one of the things that's very difficult to do in a cyber world is like watch a sunset, listen to the crickets. I mean, the sharing of creation that was given to us, the gift that was given to us, is very hard to share online. And I think we need to be out there sharing the earth together, sharing it. And that in itself will be a revolution from where we are. We shared the earth a lot more 100 or so years ago. And that's something that technology has allowed us to not only have. And so this is not a case of either or. This is a case that our gifts are multiplying. We have technology, but let us not forget nature in the process. And nature, listening to nature, and allowing our nature to reflect nature and its wisdom, could allow us to create the paradigm that I'm sure anybody who is embracing life with their heart will be more than pleased to create.
Yes, and to revitalize your soul, revitalize your gifts. And
Okay.
love the earth. Let the earth love you.
So I think we have our Mystic View number 31, Constructing New Paradigm. I think this is a good time to say goodnight to everybody.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody, and God bless you all. Thank you for being with Mystic View.